feel like Mike Rowe here. We're talking about jobs that we've had over the
Yes,
years.
we could.
I've had some very dirty jobs
Yeah.
over the years.
Yeah. Well, just the physicalness too. I remember hauling tubs of drywall to the 5th floor, 5-gallon tubs.
That sounds like fun. You mean
yeah,
like
just
drywall mud?
Just the new guy, right? The new guy has to get the mud up to it's there. And I didn't know what was worse: the bags of Quickset or the tubs of dry.
My wife and I were just watching a movie over the weekend where they have this thing about they're carrying cement bags, right, which are standard 90 pounds, and how heavy that is. You're talking about carrying those
Durabond, yeah, bags of Durabond 90 up the stairs,
Or
and they weren't even real stairs. They were like carpenter stairs because the stairs weren't in there yet. So one would be 12 inches, the next one 4, and so
and they're moving side to
couldn't
side.
take your eyes off them. You get 2 bags of Durabond 90 on you.
So we want to talk about, I mean, I mentioned the fact that, people look at someone like me that has a PhD and they think, oh, well, yeah, you've never worked a day in your life. It's just been easy. You just went to school, you've got, nice soft hands and things like that. And that's not necessarily true, right? We've done a lot of different things. So if someone looks at you now, you manage what in effect is a medium-sized research center at a very prestigious university, and people
Top 5
say
in the country.
Yes, we are. Yeah, so the civil engineering program, right now at Purdue is ranked third best in the country, right? So you're working at that level, right? You're the associate director of a center like this, and I think people that don't know you would look at you and say, "Oh, Rich, you've kind of had an easy life, right?" Let's talk about that just for a second. So you and I have talked about this before. Let's talk about the job that you had when you got out of high school. What did you call it? You were.
So I worked at a pizza place, but it was
dog technician.
Yeah, so I worked at a pizza place. It was in Maryville, and it was like a Chuck E. Cheese. It was a version of Chuck E. Cheese called Celebration Station. So they had the animatronic animals out there,
Yeah.
and it's a job. You have to do these jobs, and every now and then somebody had to put the dog costume on and go out and run around in there, shake the kids' hands and sing happy birthday and do all that stuff. And I fit in the costume. So that was the audition, right? They put it on, except I couldn't stretch my arms out because then, it would expose.
It shows your wrists.
Yeah. So in order to get out of doing that, which I wasn't a big fan, I started working days and I would make dough. So you'd make dough for the day and you'd put it in the freezer, and so the position was a dough technician. I actually put it on a resume one time, and that's all, when I went to the interview, that's all the person wanted to talk about was, tell me about dough technician.
What do you say?
Well, I had the interview talking on my terms, which was good for an interview, right? I didn't get thrown out immediately, but yeah, I don't know.
Do you remember the dog's name?
Harry the Hound.
Having known you for the past, what's it been, nearly 20 years now?
Yeah, it's almost 20 years.
So having known you all this time, I just am envisioning you as you are today inside the dog costume. Presumably, at one point, you were 18 and were a normal teenager.
I'm not giving you, so in order to experience what that was like, it wasn't just the dog costume, it was the smell of the dog costume when you're the 5th person wearing it that day. And,
that's gross.
Oh, yeah. No, it just... And then, it's not like it got cleaned from the 5 other days that people wore it.
You're hoping those people are all taking showers before they come to work.
That's an experience. But I got a paycheck, and I was looking for a paycheck.
Yeah, so presumably at some point you thought,
this isn't it.
I don't think dough technician is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Jim Henson had nothing to fear. I wasn't after any of those gigs. Yeah.
So you decided, look, I got to do something
better,
something different with my life. And this is where I think it gets interesting, because I think we've all worked those kind of jobs, right? I mean, we went to high school. We worked different jobs in high school, or maybe in that period between high school and when we started to really move on with life. So I'm always amazed, maybe is a good word, or respectful of people like you who thought, you know what, I think that I can join the military and learn a skill. I say that because my father-in-law did that, right? He joined the Navy out of high school and became a pattern maker, which most people don't know what that is anymore. But he made patterns in the Navy. When he got out, when his tour was done, he came home and he got a job as a pattern maker, and he got married, and he raised 5 children because of what the Navy had taught him. So let's talk about.
I think the similarities are that when I was young, I just imagined having a job and raising a family. That's because that's what you do. And so you're looking for this job. And back then, it wasn't really a career you're looking for, just a job. You know, my father worked at U.S. Steel for 32 years, 36 years. So you just assumed that you would find the job that you did the rest of your life. And so you search for that, right? And and you probably could share a similar story. When we were young, we didn't work one job. We had 3 jobs or 4 jobs, and quit one and start another, go back to the first one. And I don't know. I think I realized one day that I've got all these jobs and none of them are any good. Maybe it's me, right? Maybe I'm doing something wrong. So you just you got to reset because it's not working.
Harry the Hound wasn't your future.
No, I swept gas station floors. I changed oil and just not going anywhere. So you got to do something.
That's true, because you are thinking, look, that's what our generation did. We got married and we had children and we had to figure out how to support everything, right?
And my father worked at U.S. Steel until the 80s. And in the 80s, that's when the steel industry changed, right? It just, the bottom fell out. And all these men and women who had put a lifetime into that place ended up out of it with no discernible skills other than working at a steel mill. And I just remember my dad telling me, and I was very young when he passed. I can remember him telling me and my older brother, don't work in a mill, whatever you do.
Really?
So I always had that in my head that I can't do that. Like I didn't get to do that.
I would have expected. I mean, that was kind of a U.S. tradition, right? If Dad worked in the mill,
that's
then
a region tradition.
Yes, then the son worked in the mill, and I think that's true across the United States, right? That would be true whether it was a steel mill or
coal mine.
Yeah, any of that stuff. You did what Dad did, sort of a thing.
I don't know what he saw. I think about my father's upbringing. He was born into the Depression, and when he was a young man, he went to the Pacific and fought World War II, and then came back and enjoyed life in the pits of U.S. Steel. So I think it's just what he was saying is do something better.
Well, I guess as parents, we all hope that our children, children have
felt
a
like
better
he didn't
life
want,
than ours.
I mean, as I was older, I think that, as I'm older, I think that he just wanted something a little better.
Yes, I'm interested. So you skipped very quickly over the fact that your dad went off to the Pacific and fought World War II. Your dad was very specifically in the original Seabee battalion.
He was one of the original U.S. Navy Seabees.
Yes, he was an original Navy
He was actually
Seabee.
in the Navy. He had listed in the Navy. He was on board the USS Attu, which was a escort carrier. And then they had the call out in probably early 42. They had a call out for men who had construction trades. And he quit going to school around the 8th grade and went to the mill and worked, which is very normal for the 1930s.
Yeah, I just heard that statistic the other day. Back then, only about half of the people graduated from high school.
Yeah,
most people after 8th grade, that was a big deal. You graduated from 8th grade and you went to work.
Yeah, he went to work, and so he had a background of steelworking. So he was a steel worker in the U.S. Navy Seabees. One of the 7 rates is a steel worker, and that's what he did.
So they called it battalion? Is that what it is?
Called it amphibious battalions, construction battalions. Seabees is an acronym for construction battalion.
Okay. So he was in the one, right?
The very first and the finest.
All right. So here you are walking around the region where you grew up, and you're thinking, making dough and being Harry the Hound's probably not.
That's not it.
Not going to raise a lot of kids, to pay to raise a lot of kids. So you decided to.
On a Friday, I went to the recruiter. I actually walked in Now, preface this, my dad never talked about his service in the military. What I know of my dad,
Very
I learned
common.
from his brother.
Very common, by the
After
way.
my dad had passed. Most of what I know about my dad's history in the Navy, I learned after he had passed, years later, from my uncle. And, you know, from what I know of the history of the Seabees, what I know of the unit he was in, my son, one of my sons was actually in the same unit I was in, that my dad was in, and he had, you know, he's much more adept at digging stuff up. So we've learned more about. He never talked about any of that. So.
It's very, very common. You've probably read Flags of Our Fathers, right? The guy that wrote that book, it was his dad who was the Navy corpsman who was helping to raise the flag at Iwo Jima, and he says the same thing. We never knew anything about it until Dad died, and we found all this memorabilia.
Exactly.
We knew nothing about this.
That is the epitome of describing that generation. Is
Yes.
that very book. But
That's the greatest generation that ever lived.
yes. And so I don't know. I went to the recruiter in Portage on Willow Creek Road, and I was going to join the Marine Corps for some reason. I had that in my head, and he wasn't in that day. So the Navy guy.
Hoorah!
Yeah, yeah. So the Navy recruiter was in the same office, and I had asked if the Marine recruiter was here. He said no. He's out to lunch. I said okay.
So you joined
He
the
said,
Navy.
so what do you got in your mind? I said, well, I was looking to join the Marines. He's like, why would you want to do that? Like, okay.
Despite the fact that the Navy and the Marines are the same branch,
Yes.
basically.
Well, the Marines are in the Navy.
Yes,
That's how we say
they're
it.
in the Navy.
They are the Navy.
Those two really don't like one another
Right.
much.
Yeah.
So you went to become a Marine, and the Marine recruiter wasn't there
he
that
was out
day.
to lunch. The Marines were out to lunch that day.
So you ended up in the Navy.
So yeah, I sat down with the guy and I asked him what he had available, and he said, when do you want to leave? I said, as soon as possible. And he said, well, I can get you out of here next week.
Really?
And he showed me the rates that were open, and he said, well, there's I got a UT, which are a boiler tech and something else. And he said, construction mechanic. I said, what's that? He said, well, you work on equipment. I
Right.
said, well, what kind of equipment? He said, just cars, trucks, heavy equipment.
Right.
I said, oh, I could do that. I work at a gas station now. So I had no idea my dad was a CB. I had no idea what unit he was in. I had no idea of any of that. So I joined the Seabees. I went home and told my mom, I said, I'm going to join the Navy. She said, well, good for you, son. She didn't believe me.
Shit.
4 o'clock in the morning, I woke her up and said, I need a ride to the bus is leaving. So yeah, I left that quick. I think, I don't know. I believed if I was going to join. If I wait and go into the delayed entry program,
Yeah.
that wouldn't work. So I just left.
You just upped and off they shipped you, huh?
I told the recruiter that. I said, if I'm going to do this, let's move quickly. He did have to fix one speeding ticket, which delayed it a day, but somebody was driving my car too fast somewhere near Indianapolis.
I'm sure it wasn't you.
Wasn't me.
So
One
they-
of the ghosts from
Did they-
Ashley knows.
Did they send you to Great Lakes?
No, I went to Orlando.
Really?
Yeah, it was so in the '83 when I joined, there was a boot camp in Great Lakes, Orlando, and San Diego. And Orlando was the co-ed. That was the new experimental co-ed boot camp where there was all male companies and female companies.
I didn't even know they had one there.
Yeah,
My dad
it's
went
gone
to,
now.
My dad went to Great Lakes when he was in. So you joined the Navy, became a CB, basically was a mechanic, right? And you served, was it 6 years or 4 years?
Well,
6?
6 years total, actually, with the reserve time totals out 6 years.
Okay. So you served your 4 years active,
4 years
2
active
years
and 2 years
on reserve.
I did reserve in Gary, Indiana, which is a great naval base.
Yeah, because it's so near the ocean.
It's so near the ocean, yeah.
So you did that. So after your 4 years, so you got to go places, right? You remember the
Yeah.
old Navy commercial?
Yeah.
Join the Navy.
See the world.
Yeah, see the world. Did you see the world?
I saw Cuba. Spent some time in Cuba, spent some time in Okinawa, spent some time in Central America. I got to visit the Philippines before it closed down, which
Really?
was interesting. Okinawa.
Well, you've been around.
few
You spent a lot of time in Cuba.
My
though.
sons both saw much more and did so much more than I did.
Yeah, we should say that, right? Is that both your boys were also CBs,
Yes,
correct?
both of them were Seabees.
So did all three of you serve in the same? Because you served in the same battalion
Yeah,
your
so
dad did, right?
And we discovered it later that's the but so it and they had different numbering systems then, but the unit I was in was always called the first and the finest. And in my mind, I always thought, well, that's interesting. I wonder what unit my dad was in, and we had dug it up. And I went to on the base I was at in Mississippi, they had the museum, part of the CB museum there, and they had a book of all the people that had served and what units they were in. And I just remember the lady researching it and telling me that the unit your dad was in was a detachment of the unit you're in now.
Really?
I thought, well, that's pretty cool.
And the boys later served in.
And so my son David, who's my oldest son Josh, he was in the 1st Amphibious Battalion, ACB-1, and my son David was in the unit I was in, MCB-1.
So you came home after your 4 years of full-time service, back to the region.
Back to the region.
Because you grew up there in Lake County, right?
I have no idea why. It was not like the job market was any better, but I think I just knew that I was done in the military. I had.
Well, it's not long term. It's not for everyone.
Yeah, it wasn't. I just had no desire to retire from the military. It wasn't nothing against it. It just wasn't something I want to do, and no idea what I wanted to do.
But I will point out again that when you came out, you now had a skill.
I had a skill.
That was a marketable skill.
I could get a job.
You could work
somewhere.
on heavy equipment, right?
I remember looking at Stars and Stripes and looking at all the jobs for mechanics in this part of the country. I thought, well, that'll work. You know, the internet didn't exist then, so we had to go, you know, with a newspaper and go find those jobs. But
so did you come home and then, because you ended up working for Lake County, did you go down to Lake County because they had a job opening or?
No, I went, my mom was here. I stayed with her when I came home. I collected unemployment because I was out of a job. And they made me take this program. It was just a job training program in Gary. It was a pet project of one of the county commissioners, which I'll loop around to here in a minute.
We still can't be.
So I was doing the job training program. I put a resume together, which I loved the program. I think fondly of it because it taught me some skills I needed right away. How to get a job, how to go to an interview, how to dress. I didn't have those skills. So I went with my mom to, she was part of the U.S. Steel Supervisors Club that my dad belonged to, my mom and dad belonged to. So she went there with me. She made me put my uniform on because she wanted me to put my uniform on. I went there with her. And I met a gentleman named Frank DeRisi. And Frank, rest his soul, is a wonderful, wonderful man. He had worked for my dad in the mill. And when we were having dinner, he said, so what are you going to do, son? And I said, well, I got to find a job. He said, why don't you come work for me? I said, where do you work? He said, well, I'm the superintendent of the Lake County Highway Department. And I said, well, I'm a mechanic. He said, well, we could always use a good mechanic there. He said, come down, next Monday and we'll get you in. He said, I owe you the favor because your dad hired me at the mill.
This sounds very traditional to me.
Yeah,
right?
Well, there was a marker involved too, but that's a whole nother story. It's
that's one we're not supposed to tell.
Yeah. But it was really he was repaying a favor that my dad did, and I always thought of that fondly. But yeah, I went down Monday, knocked on his door, and started the process of getting hired. It was a whole, the economy not being what it is now, it was much harder to get in. I had to go talk to the commissioners. I met Rudy Clay, who was our county commissioner, who was very appreciative that I was in his program.
Yeah,
that was his pet program.
There you go.
And I remember meeting Rudy and him telling me it was an interview where he's supposed to be asking me about what I do, and he told me all the things that he had done. And I fell in love with Rudy at that moment. He was such an amazing character. And then I went and talked to another commissioner who was Ernie Niemeyer. Now these two are polar opposites. One is the county commissioner for northern Indiana, Gary Hammond, East Chicago, and had been in several movies with Fred Williamson, if you remember those movies of the 70s. And another commissioner is a farmer in South Lake County, Ernie Niemeyer, a wonderful, wonderful man, who represented the other. And so I had to get the two of these to both sign a piece of paper so I could get a job. And what I had learned is that they actually were both state reps together years before, and they knew each other, and so they signed for me, and I got a job.
So you
I went to work.
Went to work for Lake County. Mm-hmm. So you worked for Lake County, I think if I remember correctly, 20 years?
20 years.
And went from, I guess you started as a mechanic?
No, I started as a temporary help, went to, I did every job at that place. I was a parts guy for several years. Got my chauffeur's license, drove a truck. I was a heavy equipment operator for a little bit, and then became a mechanic finally.
Drove snowplow.
Drove snowplows, yeah. Pulled snowplows out of ditches, dug them out of strange and interesting places.
Yes, well, if we had 3 days, we could talk about your snowplow stories.
Yeah.
So over 20 years, starting from temporary help to when you retired from Lake County and came to work at LTAP, what position did you hold at Lake County at that point?
Supervisor,
Really?
highway supervisor.
So over 20 years, that's what you did. And, you know, sometimes I just don't know. Sometimes I think myself, right, I see point A to point B, right? This is the path that you got to go to get where you want to go. And that's not really, yours was maybe a little more tortured.
It was, yeah, there was a lot of hard work. I will always say that if you just work hard, opportunities will present themselves and you'll be better prepared to take advantage of them. And I think that probably is the underlying theme. I paid attention, I listened to people, I learned from some really smart men who were telling me things, and when I was young, it was hard to pay attention and listen, but I did.
When you're young, you know everything.
Yeah,
You
I
don't
know
need
everything.
to, yes.
Yeah, I don't, and opportunities do knock. You just have to answer the door sometimes. And it's hard to do, but you know, sometimes you answer the door, you don't know what to expect.
You don't know what's on the other side of it. It's not like there's a peephole you get to look through.
Right, and so yeah, some of those I accepted a job without knowing, you know, a new position without knowing where that's going to take me. But I knew I wanted to be a mechanic, and I knew that I could do the head mechanic's job. I felt, you know, I suffer from overconfidence. And
you did that at some point on the way, right?
Yeah. No, I knew I could do that. So I wanted a shot at that. So I kind of had that I was aiming at. What happened after that was just opportunity knocking, right?
I don't remember who it was that once said that what most people call luck is actually when opportunity meets preparation,
Yep.
right?
I believe that.
If you're prepared, if you learn and are prepared, when opportunity comes, you're ready to take that opportunity.
And it's not, you know, I would say, I absolutely agree with that, but I would add to that, it's not really preparing for something with the intent of that thing. Sometimes it's just fundamentals, being on time.
Showing to
every
work
day,
on time, right?
right? Being on time every day.
Being there every day.
Being there every day, right?
Yes.
Just, you know, and listening and paying attention and
Being interested.
yes, and learning things, you know, understand why things work. You know, I always paid attention to where the money came from. You know, I got a paycheck. Where did that money come from? Well, it came from gas tax, or it came from, you know, I just tried to learn about the job so that when those opportunities presented itself, I had a shot. Yeah.
Well, so I'm curious, so you spent 20 years working for Lake County, and you could have gone on at Lake County, right? You could have spent another 20 years there and retired after 40 years, and they'd have given you a really nice watch.
Yeah.
But instead,
Plaque.
apparently, roughly 20 years ago, somebody came knocking to ask if you wanted to get into this whole LTAP thing, right?
See, I called y'all. So I met John. So we started doing these rodeos at Lake County back in the early 90s.
Right.
And there's a plaque on the wall at the LTAP office that shows those rodeos prior to LTAP taking over in 96, 94, 95. So myself and one other gentleman, Richie Combs, who was the assistant engineer, we had developed these you know, because our boss wanted to do the rodeo in our yard. And so we developed these obstacles. And
Yeah, we're talking about obstacles to get something like that.
to get something like that. And
Only full
cones and
size,
curves
right?
and serpentines. And what we wanted to do is Richie and I were trying to replicate what people did when they got out on the road, right? Like, let's try to replicate some of those things. We stole some. This is pre-internet, so we didn't Google anything. We stole from what we had seen, but we had developed a few of our own. Some of them are being used today. But that was volunteer work, wasn't paid. It was just, you know, part of being involved, being being open to new ideas. And that led me to doing the rodeos, and then John Haberman, who was research engineer at LTAP, had came to visit, and I met John. I'll never forget meeting him first.
He came and stole your idea?
No, he came and was interested in our idea.
Oh.
And he had made a comment about doing this statewide, and that was probably 98, 97.
John's always, he's the guy that's always interested in learning something new.
Mm-hmm. He was digging what we were doing. It was a lot of fun. I think he showed up for the barbecue, but I don't know.
So you actually, when LTAP started up the LTAP rodeo, you actually, they leaned quite heavly on you guys, right?
So that's what got me closer to the LTAP program. Now, I knew of Chuck Scholler and the Herpic program because as a mechanic and as the shop foreman, I would look at the Herpic manuals. I actually used one of the manuals to write specs all the time. So I was aware of the program, but getting to know John on a more personal level really opened my eyes to what that program did. It was very interesting to me. It was another whole nother level of this government kind of, and so I'm a curious person, so I was all over it.
Would I be correct in saying that you didn't have in the back of your mind over the 20 years of Lake County, you know, someday I'm going to go to LTAP and be like the training coordinator for them?
Right. Now that was not on my radar. As a matter of fact, my father-in-law is a Purdue grad. I lived and breathed Purdue University. He had passed away in 2002. And when this opportunity came along, I get chills when I think about what I do today and knowing what he would think of that.
Yeah.
I mean, it just gives me chills. That further from anybody's idea of where I work. But, you know, I'm very, very, very proud to work at Purdue. I love the job. I love what we do. I love the people we work with. So I'm so glad that it did come along.
Yeah, I think if we were going to give you a name today, right, I think it'd be Mr. LTAP. You've probably heard that before.
I've heard that a couple of times. Indiana Rich was another one.
Indiana Rich. You have done really well. You came to work at LTAP. You're the, I don't know what the title was, it training coordinator?
Training specialist.
Training specialist.
Yeah.
So you were basically in charge of all the training that was going on. You would go out, you'd spend time with locals. Was there another step in there?
No,
before
that was it. I mean, I did that for a while, and I remember being overwhelmed by it because I would see these books come from other state LTAPs, you know, half-inch thick of all the training they do, and I've got like 1 page of stuff. And I remember John saying, you know, don't worry about it. Just do what you do well.
Right.
Don't worry about how much you do. Just do what you do well. And so, you know, it just took a while. The Road Scholar program was brand new. When I took it over in 2007, it had started in 2004. So I really just took one thing and focused on it, and that was Road Scholar. And just wanted to do the best I could to get that program as strong as possible, because I knew from where I had been the value of that. If you want to know, if you're working at a local agency or closely related to a local agency and you wanted to know more about how it works, this was the path, and I could clearly see that. And so I just focused in on a Road Scholar and wanted it to be the best program it could be with the most. It needed to have a strong technical. When I took over Road Scholar, I was thinking about this the other day. Course 9, 10, 11, and 12 weren't done yet.
Yeah.
We had to create those, right?
Yes. Some of those were a headache.
Oh.
So so you started at Lake County and you thought, oh, I'm a mechanic now. I could be a head mechanic, right?
That's as high as I thought I could get in the
Well, but you thought, look, I could do that head mechanic job.
Do that, yeah.
You came to LTAP, you were a training specialist,
yes.
right? Did you think, I could be the program manager. I could run this
I
program.
don't like that question. Did I think I could do that?
He doesn't like that question.
Well, let me answer it this way.
I mean,
I was very, very clear as to what the program did.
Yes.
And where the program belonged.
Well, and John, who was a good friend of yours, was the program manager.
Yeah, he had a clear vision of how that was, and I was buying what he was
You
selling.
had no You had no
I was very
desire to unseat
comfortable.
a friend,
I was
right?
very comfortable.
Yes.
No, very comfortable. I was happy where I was. I didn't want to be anything else. And then when John left, and Dr. McCullough came in, Dr. McCullough had a different take on it, and I necessarily didn't see it the same way. So, I struggled with his, not that his vision was wrong, I didn't share it.
It was different.
It was different. And so that was probably when I said, no, either, when Dr. McCullough retires, and if the person comes in and sees it a little more my way, I'll stay. If not, I'll probably leave. I probably had those thoughts. Not thinking that I would ever be that person. That thought didn't cross my mind until somebody came in my office, sat down, and said, "Why don't you apply for that job?"
Well, think about it though. If I remember correctly, when Bob left, when he retired, when we needed to hire a new program manager, I think we interviewed 3 people, and you were one of them. And I'm sure that interview is etched in your brain for all eternity.
I remember all those slides, yeah.
But and I've told you this before, is that basically when you got done, the comment that I was getting from the committee was, look, we got to hire him. And that was because, you had this 10-year plan in mind. You had a very clear plan of what LTAP was going to do over the next 10 years, which I'll just add that we managed to do over the 5 years when you became program manager,
Yeah,
right?
I think we checked all them boxes, didn't we?
Yeah, pretty much. And I think that was because you were able to make a very clear 10-year plan. And I think that was because not just the fact that you'd been with LTAP for a number of years as a training specialist, but I think also because of the time that you spent working for the Lake County Highway Department and the time that you had spent with other highway departments in counties and cities and towns, and really kind of had that feel for
It's
it.
all about the need. You got to see, you understand the need, and a wise man had taught me one time to understand. I would get frustrated with my commissioners or my council, and Mark Malcheski was one of my mentors. He was the superintendent of the highway for a long time, and he used to tell me, "You're getting frustrated with them because you're not seeing it from their point of view. You're only seeing your point of view, and they have more to worry about." And he wasn't defending them, but he was trying to get me to see things a little differently.
Right.
And that really served me well when I came to LTAP, because I could, when you stand in front of a room to teach people, I always think about why everybody's here. And it always hits me whenever when I walk in, and you probably have something like, why is everybody here? What can I do here today that'll help answer the question that all of these people have, right? And you'll never be able to do that, ever.
No, but you hope that at least when the majority of people go away, they think, "Oh, I'm glad I was here today.
Yeah.
I got something from this."
I got what I was looking for, and Mark helped me to understand that with my local politicians, so that when I would meet some of these local agencies, it was more about what do they see from their end, what do they need, and so putting together a plan for the program, even though I had zero thought of getting the job, I thought I'll just go interview, and honestly thought, well, it's just good practice interviewing, right? Because I learned that a long time ago at that job training course, to do as many interviews because you get good at it.
Good practice.
Good practice. But thinking about 10-year plan, all I did was just look at it from the need. What is needed out there?
Right. So you became program manager, and to be honest, time has flown so fast.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
not
gone
even sure
quickly,
how
hasn't
many years you were program manager.
2018
That's when you started. So
as manager, October 1st, 2018.
8 years, 9 years, 8.5.
Yeah.
So now you're the associate director, which, as a program manager, you basically ran day-to-day operations for the center. Now as the associate director, it's really more of a vision. You don't run day-to-day stuff
Some
anymore.
special projects, some, making sure, and you as well, we talk about succession planning now, right? Like, what will we leave when we retire off? What will we leave the program? What kind of shape we leave it in? And we put it in good hands with Meredith and Jennifer. And now it's just supporting them, keeping the program pointed in the right direction, but but not necessarily driving it.
So, okay, so you've been an associate director for a year. So, I mean, you're going to become the dean at some point?
No.
You're president of the university? We're just talking about your
I
goal.
think I've hit it. I think I hit that.
You feel like you hit the ceiling?
Yeah.
Well, I'm always amazed that a guy that started basically wearing a Harry the Hound suit is now running a research center at a major university.
I'll never forget talking with a friend, and he had asked me, so what do you do for the university? I said, well, I'm an associate director. And he said, oh, wow. He said, did you go to Purdue? I said, no, I didn't go to Purdue. He's like, well, where'd you go to college? I said, I didn't go to college. He said, wait a minute.
How'd you get hired at Purdue?
Do they know that? I think so.
Well, I would say again, though, a university education is a good thing, but it's not for everybody, right? There are other paths to get where you want to go.
This program is unique in that it has a duality to it. It has a very strong academic core and center to it. The program was developed on an academic side to assist government agencies. I think what I bring to it, and maybe I hope that always exists in it, is some of that practical firsthand experience of what the local agencies actually need, the understanding of what they go through. And it doesn't have to be a person who worked there, but just long as the program understands the need from that point of view, I think it'll be fine. But I feel like that's what I brought. You know, it probably resembles the extension programs, I guess, at Purdue a little bit,
somewhat,
right? It's taking that academic resources and putting them out in the field, and I think
making them
do
practical for people that have to implement things on a day-to-day basis.
because our communities are dealing with some very technical issues, and they need a university like Purdue to be a resource. You know?
Yeah, and working with the locals is fun. They're nice people.
Oh, they're amazing. Oh, they're amazing. I've loved all the years of driving from Crown Point to West Lafayette, I think I got to get a new job. But then I go hang out with the locals, and I just fall in love with it. So
Yes, well, you are Mr. LTAP, Indiana Rich.
Indiana Rich. Yeah.
So when I look at a story like yours, right, it wasn't a straight path, right? When I was in college as an undergraduate, which, I had several different majors as an undergraduate because I could never figure out, because I thought I needed to have a career. I had to be in something.
That's how we were raised that way.
Yes, and I never knew, right? I thought I wanted to be an architect when I started. Turns out I'm not that creative, right? I thought I wanted to be, in the business school. And then I thought, well, gee, this is an engineering university. Maybe I should be an engineer. It was all over the map. And I think I hear a story like yours today, and all these years later, I think, gosh, I wish somebody had told me Rich's story when I was 18 so that I could understand that I don't have to decide today at 18 what I want to be 30 years or 40 years in the future.
I was blessed with really smart people that allowed me to get close and gave me really good advice, and I listened and taught me a thing or two, and some of it's it's a little street logic, but I look at things sometimes. I look at situations of people like a hand of poker, right? But that's how people at times say, Rich, it's not important what cards you have in your hand. It's more important what cards everybody else has in their hand.
Or what they think you have in your hand.
Right. Yeah. But things like that I could relate to real world have served me well. And hopefully, I've tried to pass on some of this advice to others as it was given to me. And
Do we have mentors today that we used to?
I think we do. I think it looks a little different. I think some of it, there's a lot of information out there today compared to when we were young. And when I say a lot, there's a lot of really good information and there's a lot of garbage. So
welcome to the internet.
Welcome to 2025. But there's a lot of really good stuff out there, and so hopefully people can filter through it. And
Well, I mean, we put out, I think we put out a lot of good stuff at LTAP that could be very helpful. I just, I've been teaching at the university now I'm in my 26th year. And students have changed over the years, right? Different generations. But when you look at brand new freshmen and you look them in the eye, and it's like, probably a huge percentage of them really have no idea about where they're going or what it is they want to do. I mean, if I were to ask, if we had 200 or 300 new freshman students in civil engineering, civil and construction engineering, and I would say to them, write down what you think your career is going to be, or what you'd like your career to be. About 90% of them are going to write the same thing. Oh, I want to graduate with my degree. I want to work for a consultant for a few years until I become a professional engineer, and then I want to start my own consulting. Start my own consulting. Yes, and that's just not going to happen. 90% of those, it's not going to happen for all of them. Some of them will, right? Some of them will be very successful at it. Some will have smaller companies, but most of them won't. If they have their own companies, it'll be a one-person company sort of a thing. And, as an 18-year-old, you're thinking, what do I do? College is expensive these days. And I in no way discourage anyone from going to the university if that's what they want to do. It's treated me well. But I'm a first-generation college graduate, right? I had no guidance from my parents. They didn't know anything about the university.
I always look at it, it wasn't in the cards for me for a host of reasons. I remember when I always wanted to go to college when I worked at the county, and I was going to go to Purdue Calumet back then at night, but just worked. I mean, I worked a lot, and
as it turns
I thought,
out,
well, I'll go to Purdue. I'll get a job at LTAP. That's I'll just go to college while I'm there. And I never forget the dumb look on my face when I found out that Purdue University West Lafayette doesn't have evening classes. So if I want to go to college at night, I got to go to Purdue Calumet. And I thought, okay, I give up.
It's because the faculty here, we don't want to teach night classes.
So it never occurred to me. I usually do my homework on things, but it never occurred to me that.
Night classes typically don't exist in the university unless the university is in a large urban area.
Yeah, like
Yes, or Indianapolis or somewhere like that. Because otherwise, it wouldn't be worth the effort. You wouldn't get enough people coming in for night classes.
Yeah. But it's just, my journey is my journey, and I wouldn't change a thing.
But it's a great story.
Yeah.
Well, you were talking earlier about, trying to imagine what, other people think or what their needs are. And I'm thinking, what does an 18-year-old need to hear from us today? And it's, I'm thinking, I think just what you think. Look, I never started out to be a university professor, right? I just started out, I went to the university because I thought that it would help me get a better job at some point. I just wanted to be able to have a family and raise a family and, be a solid citizen kind of a thing. That's what our generation was all about. And now looking back on it, I'm thinking, well, I sure wish somebody had told me. I didn't need to have all the answers at age 18.
Probably did, because you probably did the same thing I did, in that you worked hard, you showed up on time, you put yourself in a position so that what we call opportunity would play out for. I mean, you've been very successful. I think for me, I don't call it luck. I just some of it's hard work, some of it's intentional, some of it's accidental, but I would tell that 18-year-old the same thing that you just got to be prepared to take advantage of what comes next, because that might be opportunity that shows up, and you've got to, and being prepared is being ready to act on it, being in a good position, being respected. People who you work for need to believe in you, and you have to earn that, and you earn that every single day.
Right.
So that day when opportunity knocks, right? I remember when my shop supervisor, my shop foreman, he had a little trouble that weekend with a county vehicle and some things, and that Monday when I showed up to work, they handed me the keys, and it wasn't because I was the first one in the building. It was because they had known that I was going to work hard.
Right, you built trust up over time.
You build that, and that's what I mean about just being in a position that when opportunity presents itself,
Well,
you're ready to go.
I have to think, I mean, you grew up in a steel mill family, right? Your dad worked in the mill. I grew up in a farm family.
Neither one of us do that.
No, as it turns out, we don't. But if you think about it, I mean, you talk about your dad. He wanted you not to work in the mill. That was really the advice he gave you. The only advice my dad really ever gave me about the job was when I was in college, he said, when you finish, get a job with a good company that has good benefits and stay with them, because that's what his generation did, right? You get a job with good benefits and you stay with it. And that's the only advice he ever gave me. I've got to guess that neither our fathers would have thought that we would grow up to be people who have, I don't know, say had lunch with 3 governors of Indiana, one of whom became a vice president of the United States. Our fathers would not have pictured that.
No. Nope.
And so you went from Harry the Hound to hanging out with the governor of Indiana. I'm not sure what Governor Holcomb would think about that, but.
My first job was a dishwasher at the Supervisors Club. My dad was a member and worked at after he left the mill. And one of my early memories is just him showing up with a dirty dish, saying, "Did you wash this?" Kid can't even wash dishes. So yeah, I don't know.
My kid can't wash dishes.
He can't wash dishes.
He had no hope.
This
back
isn't going to
then,
end up well. Yeah. But yeah, I think. He taught me some things. I was 16 when he passed, so I didn't get a lot of time with him. But him, my mom, my brother, they just taught me some things, and it's helped me a ton.
Well, I guess the question then, really the last question we have to ask ourselves is, what do people like you and I do to help the next generation, or today's generation?
Yeah.
The 17 and 18-year-old kids today that are coming from high school and they're thinking, I'm not really sure I want to go to college. I'm not sure if I can afford it, even if I can. There are ways, just because I didn't start. Out of high school, I had a job in a company that we basically supplied bearings and parts to factories, right? I just delivered stuff to several big, GM and different big factories around. So you don't have to start, just because you didn't start in college, the August after you graduated from high school doesn't mean you still can't go.
It's easier than ever to go to college right now than it's ever been. You could, if you're 18, you have a lot of options, right? You could go to college, get your degree and begin life from that position. You could also go to work, and you could start a family, and you could go to college at night,
right?
And in a few years have a different position.
And I've known people that have done both those.
Yeah,
right?
no, and we didn't have those options.
No,
when we started out. So yeah, today I'm very grateful. These kids have a lot more, and maybe more decisions. Maybe it's harder to decide which path is correct. I don't know. It wasn't affordable for me to go to college for most of my life, because some of the loans and the grants and the red tape you had to go through to get the money to go to college wasn't there. It's easier now. So I think it's more of an option for people today at all levels, whether it's post high school or later on in your career. So yeah, and technical schools, there's so many of them out there. There's so many certificate programs that could get you leveled up. Say you're working and you're not ready to go, to a full degree program, but you could level up. I remember getting certified as a ASE certified master mechanic. I was so proud of myself. I went, took the tests, did all the courses. I was the only certified technician in the shop, and then I immediately had to get all the certifications because I got one, I'll get them all. And so it makes you feel good. It gives you confidence. It gives you, that next step is not such a big leap. And if I had to give some advice to either somebody coming out of high school or somebody just working, try something. Don't try something. Go to a certificate course, learn something, take it, pass it. move on to what's next.
Don't think, oh, should I do that? Because do I want to do that the rest of my life?
Yeah,
Just
no,
because you
just
go
do
do
it.
that doesn't mean that
Yeah.
you're going to do that the rest
Yeah,
of your
yeah,
life.
yeah. It'll just take you to the next step, and that step may take you in a different direction.
My guess is when you joined the Navy that day, you didn't think, well, you know,
No
one day
idea.
I'm going to grow up and run the LTAP.
No idea. No idea. But I knew that I was learning fundamentals, right? I knew that the things that I was learning are going to pay off, right? Just
Yeah,
pay
there's a
attention.
lot of different ways to get education. There are a lot
Mm-hmm.
of different things that are education.
And some stuff I should not have learned, and I had to forget those things. But
Those are the things that your wife gets after you about.
yeah. Still curse like a sailor on occasion. So
Yeah, so I heard, so if I ask you the question, if I say to you, oh, Rich, so today in 2025, looking back, what would you want to tell 18-year-old Rich? I mean, you've already said that you don't regret the path
I
you've
don't
taken
regret
at all.
anything. I couldn't imagine what I would change. I would tell young me to listen more than talk. I talk more than I listen, and I probably missed great advice doing that along the way.
Well, now you're older, you can talk all you want.
Yeah. Well, I know I
But
still
then
listen.
you get older, and then we don't have the energy to talk
I tell you,
anymore.
I'm learning more now than I ever have in my life. I'm on a quest to learn as much as I can. And no idea why. I'm reading more than I ever have. Maybe I have more time. Maybe I appreciate it more. But I am just learning things that I don't know.
Well, yeah, we were just talking before we got started about the fact that now, all these years later, right, you've kind of gotten to this point as the associate director. Now, all of a sudden, you've gone back and picked up a guitar and are spending way too much money
Way
on
too much money, way too much time, way too much of everything.
on guitars,
On guitars,
right?
yeah.
Just because it's probably something you wanted to do for much
Something
of your
I've always
life.
wanted to do when I was a kid. My dad bought me a guitar, but it was secondhand and couldn't. I remember going to take lessons when I was a kid, and I was so excited. And we saved up money to pay for lessons, and the instructor picked up the guitar and said, "I can't do nothing with this. The neck's warped." And handed it back, and just the air out of the balloon, right?
That was it, huh?
That was it. And so just along the way, wanting to do it, not being able to do it, and time and family and work and all these other things that were important because that wasn't important. And
Right.
now I would tell you that it probably was important. How I feel about myself and how I feel the confidence I get from achieving something, just as simple as learning a bar chord or picking up a lick. It's an amazing feeling, and that amazing feeling I could have used when I was in my 30s. Just go home after a bad day and sit down and do something wonderful. Don't
Yeah.
miss that. It's important.
But like most of us, when you're in your 30s, you can't go home and sit down because you got to go home and then you got to wolf down dinner so you can get to whatever sporting event
Yeah,
the
yeah,
kids
yeah,
are
you
in that night.
Yeah, coaching football. That's a good idea.
Yes, you're always doing something.
Yeah.
I remember those years where you're so busy and then you finally kind of get, and now you're playing the guitar again.
Yeah. Finally learning and enjoying it, and now I'm obsessed with it and spending way too much money on it.
So does your wife ever say to you, Rich, you're playing the guitar too loud?
No, yeah, loud. You should see the amp I bought. That's a whole nother story. No, she likes that my habit, my hobby, my obsession occurs in the basement and not
Far away from her?
not in a boat out on a lake or
Yeah.
At
least you're safe down there from those parts.
I'm within reach.
I
But
suppose you could get electrocuted.
I could.
Knock
but,
on wood. I'm not trying to curse you there, but
But she likes that I'm home and not chasing some wild dream somewhere.
I
But,
get that.
Yeah, and I mean it's expensive, but there are more expensive. I drove by a couple old 48 Fords that were for sale. I thought there's an expensive hobby right there.
Yeah, trying to fix old cars.
So it's there's worse things than a guitar habit, but
Well, we'll see how that goes in the future.
yeah, I don't know where that road takes me, but we'll see.
So what I take away is that you definitely came on a road that was less traveled to get to where you are today.
Yes, a road less traveled, but I would equate it to a good chip seal road. That part of it was a little rough, part of it was really good. Not too much of it was paved.
Well, yeah, and it certainly wasn't paved with gold, was it?
No, it was not. It was not. There was no Pazer 10 along the way. It was.
Well, I like the fact that you say, I wouldn't change.
I wouldn't
change
nothing.
how I got here.
I wouldn't. I'm so blessed to be where I am and
I think that's
the
one of
position I am and what I do.
That's one of the things that you would tell your 18-year-old self or any 18-year-old, right? Look, it's not about where you started.
Yeah.
It's not even about where you finished.
Journey.
It's the journey in between that counts. That's the part. And you know,
Well
we talk
said.
about when we were in our 30s and had children, and we were so busy, we didn't have time to do
blur.
anything, right? It was all a blur. And you look back and you think, well, those were the best years. And
And it happens along. I know when Meredith took over, I remember sitting with her and when she took over as a training manager, and I said, just enjoy it. I did it so fast. I wish I could do it again.
yeah.
And do it slowly and enjoy it and sit down. You know, I could think of being in a hotel and a conference room at a hotel in Indianapolis, teaching a course with Thomas Burke and talking with people. I want to do that again so bad because those were the wonderful moments. And I don't know that I rushed from training to training. I don't know that I enjoyed it. So.
Well, you are a people person.
Yeah, I could
You need
slow down and enjoy it.
You
That's
need
my
to interact
advice.
with people. That's
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming in today and sitting down
thanks
and
for
talking
this.
to me. And I'm glad that you didn't bring up any of those stories that we're not supposed to tell people.
Yeah, I had a list of things that we'll talk about later.
Things that would get you or someone else in trouble. Where
No,
they would come out.
some of that advice was a little salty and you know, pretty slick too. Some of it, you know.
Well, we are talking about Lake County, right?
We're talking about Lake County, yeah. My rule is believe half of what you hear and none of what half of what you see and none of what you hear. Because some things that you think are wrong are not wrong, they're just orchestrated. I learned that a long time ago. Not everything is as it seems. So,
Well, we appreciate the time.
thank you.
Anything you got to tell the audience before we're going?
Oh, LTAP's such a wonderful thing. You know, we only exist by the grace of our local agencies and all the people that support us, but we need to know what they need. I mean, it's an obsession with this job is connecting with these locals and finding out what they need from us. We'll pull it off. Just tell us what you need.
Yeah, that is well said. We do know what they need, and we typically will pull it. I'll be able to pull it off for them.
I love it when somebody sends me an email or calls and says, "Hey, we need this fixed. We need this. We need to know more about this. Box beam culverts. How do we treat them?" I love those questions. That's what drives this program.
All right. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
I'm told we can just get up and walk away.
Yeah, they just fade to black at some point, right? That's like the end of our career. I just all fade to black thing, right?
Yeah, I suppose it is.
Yeah.
Isn't there like a Rolling Stones song like that?
Yeah, there is.
Fade to black.
Yeah, you know, to play that song, you have to cut the top string off your guitar.
I'm too cheap to pay for a new string.
Yeah, well, I think Keith Richards just would rather not hit that bass note. It's in his way, right? So he just cuts it off.